By the time this video comes out, Pathologic 3 will be out, and 5 seconds before I wrote this sentence, while looking at which games were coming out this year, I remembered that fact. Pathologic 2 was such a unique narrative experience, with gameplay so punishing that I could only describe it as the first and only real survival game to ever have been made. In one of the first videos I ever put out, I spent 10 minutes fawning over the introductory hour, how it threw its atmosphere over us like a thick quilt and established characters and cultures that felt genuine. As a sequel/remake/reimagining of the original, I like that 2 was tasked with introducing new players to the town and reintroducing returning ones under the pretense of our playable character coming home after a long time away. To my knowledge, The Bachelor is completely new to this place, so I wonder if the continuous stage play bits will be as woven into the meta-narrative. I think it was a good choice for the routes to be split into their own games, considering how much time it took for me to complete 2. There's a ton of choice and consequence that can change the experience greatly, from 4 wildly different endings to central characters that live or die depending on your skill, knowledge, and immediacy in the gameplay. 2 just did an exceptional job at presenting you with different cultures that were strongly devoted to their own way of life. And one of my favorite things about the game was towing the line between respecting the many backwards-ass lifestyles in order to be able to exist there, while still successfully playing the role of a medical doctor. It's as frustrating as it sounds, but the commitment to that dynamic is what made Pathologic 2 such a well-rounded experience. I don't know a ton about The Bachelor, but I expect no less conflict in this upcoming campaign. We don't know whether Nightmare Operator will come out this year or not, but I really hope it does. Indie horror games usually lean into more old school styles of presentation in terms of their cameras, and while I've gotten a little tired of modern horror games hard sticking to the over-the-shoulder thing, I'm willing to let this game slide because of what it has going on in the gameplay department. While a third-person shooter with some melee combat doesn't sound that unique, the fact that weapon switching will be done with fighting game-style inputs sounds pretty interesting to me. Clips the developer account has posted online makes this look less like survival horror and more like straight-up action. Adding an extra layer on top of a combat encounter adds a bit of franticness to a fight, and it can raise the skill ceiling in a fun way. Rewatching trailers for the sake of this video reminded me of Pragmata, another third-person shooter with an equally arbitrary gimmick that made it a lot more fun. Instead of weapon switching with more difficult inputs, Pragmata creates a barrier to dealing damage behind 2 to 3 second hacking puzzles. The demo for this game was short, about 15 minutes, but it could have been a fraction of that because I was sold before the first 5. It's the grand return of Capcom's in-house engine being used its intended way, for packing insane amounts of detail into smaller environments running at high frame rates rather than open worlds that look and feel like peanut butter. I guess RE9 comes out a couple months earlier, so that isn't technically true, but actually, can I say something? Capcom, you guys just can't help yourselves, can you? No matter what they do, they just keep finding a way to make RE4 again. 8 had its moment, but it felt so safe and simple compared to the shot in the leg that 7 was. And 9, yay, Leon's back and he's doing all the cool stuff he did in 4, except he's old now and that fucking haircut. My biggest hope for Pragmata is that they figured out how to implement some solid gameplay dependent storytelling. If you need the robot girl to help deal damage, then I'd like to see a beat where they get separated and have to help each other out in more creative ways, like Cooper and BT or Ratchet and Clank. Highlight their individual abilities to remind us how well they can work together. On top of all that, this looks like a prime candidate for some good old gyro aim, baby. On the opposite side of the teamwork spectrum is Cairn, the game I'm most excited for this year by far, and I'm glad I don't have to wait that much longer. This is the 4th release by the Game Bakers, a more low-key studio, but easily one of my favorites in this more modern era of games. They're best known for Fury, released back in 2016, but it was Haven, their next game, that really grabbed me. It's a post-Romeo and Juliet kind of story, taking place in the times after these forbidden lovers already gave up everything to be together. It's a simple turn-based RPG that leaned heavily into its art, music, and chemistry of our main man and woman, or man and man. Woman and woman? Whatever you want. I played it before these options were added as updates, but I don't doubt that the chemistry works just as well with the other characters. Considering Haven is a simpler game with more character-driven moments, it's cool to see Cairn look like the complete opposite. Something a little more lonely and more mechanically rich than anything else they've ever made. I played the demo a few months back and I was surprised to see this level of depth from them in what is a full-on mountain climbing simulator. Ever since Breath of the Wild, I've been fiending for more of these mountain climbing stamina management games so badly that fucking Peak was one of my more fond gaming memories of last year, and Cairn seems like exactly what I've been looking for. Romeo as a dead man is in kind of a weird spot. It looks like more Grasshopper and Suit of Goodness. As Unreal Engine as these games do look, they still manage to make something that looks visually weird and interesting. Gameplay-wise, it looks pretty samey, like oddly samey, like same windscreen as No More Heroes 3 samey. I feel like if I just put these games on top of each other and crank the transparency a little, it's... Some quick honorable mentions. Control Resonant is pretty much a guaranteed slam dunk. I am excited, but I'm not exactly jumping out of my chair. Saros is another one, but I'm going to wait for the PC release for some mouse and keyboard action. 007 looks like a nice handful of peanut M&Ms, but I'll wait for a price drop and some bug fixes. Michelangelo was a talented painter. You may have heard of him. Commissioned by Pope Julius II, he was tasked with painting the Sistine Chapel. The next 4 years of his life were lived out in complete physical agony. My spine's all knotted from folding over itself. I'm bent taut as a Syrian bow. Quite literally backbreaking work, done nearly all by himself. But the result? It's one of the most important pieces of art in human history, and equally impressive. As time passed, what the world calls art would branch out into so many different things, Mikey's head would explode if you tried to explain it all. Video games are just one of those things, and like Michelangelo, there are certain people who are masters of the craft. I would not consider Ken Levine one of those people. I know my opinion isn't a popular one, but what I wouldn't disagree with is that Ken has earned his spot. There's a few select development studios headed by people who have earned enough cultural cachet and money for the big guys, more importantly, who now have the opportunity to spend much more time creating something a little more out there. In Ken's case, it's been 12 years. 12 years since Ken Levine posted his grand vision of narrative Legos and hyper-subtle reactions to player input.
So to do something really different, we really had to go back to the drawing board, and that required time. That was the most important thing. Time to fail. Time to fail for a long period where you don't have 150 people who are looking at you and saying, dude, what am I supposed to be doing today?
It's not often a game gets developed consistently for this long. He's noted that his team at Ghost Story Games is very small, but still. This just seems to be the way Ken likes to do things. Like being the key word. Mr. Levine, over your 30-year existence in this industry, you have only directed 4 games. That's like 8 Sistine Chapels. One could argue that your output is as important to the history of video games as Michelangelo's paintings were to the history of art itself. But to me, this is your make or break moment, Ken. You know why? Because Michelangelo wasn't even a painter. He was a poet, motherfucker, a sculptor. He didn't want to paint the Sistine Chapel. He only did it because it was a direct request from the Pope, and he saw it as a test of endurance. He changed the way people perceived God. Mike's depiction of God as an old dude with a beard was not a thing before him, and he did it with content. And that's my problem with you, Ken. This is what you were made to do. Games are your calling. You don't put one out every day, but when you do it with a smile on your face. Ugh, look at you. You're pushing 60, and you're gorgeous. You have no hatred, no annoyance for your career in your heart. Kojima hasn't played a video game in 40 years. He watches movies and Skypes hot celebrities all day. But you love to talk about how many games you play and how you like to keep up with what's going on. No. Look tired. Look disheveled. Once. When Judas comes out, and we don't even know if it's coming out this year or not, I'm going to be looking for it. I'm going to be looking for you. I've been playing games for long enough. I can tell. Let me see you slip. Let me see the fire. Michelangelo wasn't just sitting there for 4 years in physical agony. He was stewing, boiling, even more in emotional agony. I think that perceptible counterbalance can make things more interesting. I know what a Ken Levine game plays like, but I want to know what a Ken Levine game can feel like. If you nail this concept of yours, and I will say it is a very, very lofty concept, I'll be there to try it. But if there's no anger, no frustration, if you're not in there, then I'm not interested. Judas 2026, baby. I'll see you later.